All right, so we want to navigate through weight loss plateaus, right? And one of the things that people always seem to think is that they're plateaued far before they're ever plateaued, right? And so the main thing that I just wanted to talk about is to actually make sure that you're in some form of a plateau. Now, if you've been doing something for a year, 3 years, 5 years, and things haven't been moving the last couple of months, there's a good chance that you're at a plateau because you've been doing it for so long. Now, obviously, there's a lot of different steps between there, like what have you actually been doing? Were you actually consistent the entire time? Or have you just been, trying to, lose this weight for the last year, 3, 5 years, something like that, right? Because there's a huge difference. A lot of people kind of confuse trying with consistency. Now, don't get me wrong. I am super proud of anybody who's been trying that long because obviously it's important to you. Now, there's a lot of other factors where you can address the consistency issues and why those are happening and all that stuff, but that really doesn't do us any favors, and that's not the purpose of this video. So the purpose of this video today is really just to uncover things that you can do if you truly are in a plateau. So this is gonna assume that you've been consistent for a really long time, right? And I should probably really mention, even though that's not what this video is about, consistency is not, oh, I'm great for 5 days, and then on Saturday and Sunday, I just completely blow my diet out of the water. Or I'm, 3 days out of the week, I'm consistent, and then the other days are kind of off plan. Like I am talking about majority of the time, you're on target, you're on plan. And then every once in a while, every blue moon, that's when things, go a little differently. So let me get a little coffee here. All right. So the first thing is if you truly are in a plateau, well, actually, let's start with uncovering if you're in a plateau. So I actually got a message from one of our members earlier, I guess it doesn't matter when, but got a message from them earlier, and they were concerned about their weight loss, right? They had a bunch of success in the beginning, and they were kind of concerned, like, oh my gosh, what am I doing wrong? And this was kind of like the first time her weight, I guess, slowed down. Now, in my opinion, it's not slow at all. It's just we have to look at the overall picture of what's happening. And instead, she was looking at the week to week or even the month to month, right? Because sometimes, even though we're focused on a 4-week period, there's still other stuff going on in a longer duration of time that if we didn't pay attention to, we're going to miss, okay? So in the last 7 weeks, she was down 12.5 pounds and 15 inches. Right now, if you've been around for a while or, you consume my stuff before, you know that I always say, if you're losing inches, you're losing body fat, right? And so obviously 15 inches is a lot of body fat to lose, and that's amazing. But not only that, she's lost 12.5 pounds in the last 7 weeks. Now, I know that there's someone that's going to be on here and say, oh, well, you should be losing 30 pounds every, in 7 weeks. First of all, if you're doing that, you're probably doing something that's extremely unsustainable. And if you're doing that, you're probably eating into muscle. And you have no idea what her weight is. And I'm not going to tell you. And I will tell you that for her weight being what it is, that is amazing, amazing progress. Okay. So now that that's out of the way, what are the standards that you should be looking for? In other words, what's like a good gauge to know if you're truly plateaued? Okay, so for what we do, we focus on 11 to 40 pounds. And I know that that's a range, but that's just what we consistently produce, right? Like that's the data that we have. Anybody who works with us will consistently lose between 11 and 40 pounds every 12 weeks, assuming they have that to lose. But in addition to that, it's and or for us, and it's 8 to 15 inches every 12 weeks. And the reason it's that is because that's what we consistently produce. Now, I would argue that that is exactly the range that you're in. So if you're looking at your own journey, maybe you're doing this on your own, the gold standard for me is anywhere between 8 and 15 inches of loss and anywhere between 11 and 40 pounds. If you are within that range within a 12-week time frame, you are not plateaued, okay? So if you're there, you're good. Don't freak out. I know that when you first start your journey, you're going to lose weight so much faster, and that's how you want it to sustain. But that's just not realistic, right? The first couple of pounds are going to be a lot of the bloat that you've been hanging on just from going from processed food to eating whole food, okay? But as long as you're within that range, doesn't matter how much you lose every day, doesn't matter how much you lose every week. What matters is that you're within that range, okay? If you can do that, I promise you, you're going to take so much pressure off of yourself, and you're probably going to be so much more successful because you don't have this, cloud over you where you're just expecting to lose 40 pounds every 3 minutes, okay? But that's the first thing, is make sure that you're actually plateaued. Now, the second thing is make sure that you're actually eating enough food if you truly are plateaued. Okay, now what I mean by that is a lot of people who are truly in a plateau, meaning they've been consistent for a really long time, and they lost a bunch of weight. Now that nothing's really moving, right? They're not in that 11 to 40 pound or 8 to 15 inches range, and they've been plateaued for a little bit. Now, the big thing is, number one, make sure it's actually been at least 12 weeks. Number two is make sure that you're eating enough food, because you have to remember that the dieting is a stress on the body. Your body's only job is to survive. And so knowing that with its body, your body's only focused to survive, it's going to slow things down, right? And the reason it slows things down is because it's always trying to create an adaptation. And when it creates that adaptation, you have to eat even less food, right? But here's the problem, is a lot of people go so extreme in the beginning that when they start to, eat less food and they do truly adapt, well, because they've already been eating so much less food and they're like, man, I can't reduce food. I'm going to be starving, or I'm going to, start losing my hair, or my nails are going to start to get brittle, or my hormones are going to start to suck. My sleep is going to start to suffer. Like, you start running into all of these real issues that people deal with. You don't know what to do, right? And most people think like, oh my gosh, if I've been eating 1,200 calories a day and now I got to eat 1,000 just to make some more progress, that's not going to be sustainable for me. And you are exactly right. Okay, so one of the things that we do inside of our program is we are changing things up every single week, not because it's like this magical thing, and it's because it makes it really hard for your metabolism to adapt. Now, if you've gone through our program, you know that even based off of the food that you choose daily, your stuff will be different, not to mention the work that we do on changing it on a weekly basis to really, really, really make sure that those adaptations don't happen, okay? So one of the things that you could do on the front end in your journey is make sure that you're doing like some type of cyclical approach. Right now, if you work with us, we don't have you track calories. We don't have you, fit anything into your macros. Like, everything is very structured. That's just the way that we do things. And no, it's not because I'm military and wearing a green shirt, if that ever comes off. But anyways, because structure equals freedom, right? You do things in a structured way so that you can have freedom. But we won't get into that. That's a topic for a whole nother video. But the thing that you could do is make sure that you're changing things every week in a very structured fashion, right? What I don't like, what most people who do something called calorie cycling, is they do it in reserve, right? And what that means is, oh, well, I didn't finish all of my food today, so I'll leave it in reserve. Well, the problem with leaving stuff in reserve and be like, oh, I have, it's Sunday and I have 600, 700, 800 calories that I didn't eat through the week, and now I can just binge, right? Or I could just overdo it. Well, you can see the type of behavior that creates. We don't want to get into the thought process of, oh, I'm going to restrict, and then binge, right? Especially if you have a history of being a binge eater, right? So that's the big thing there is, when it comes to changing things up, it may be time to eat more food, right? Or the thing that you can do without eating more food, which we can get to in the next, topic, is you can just start changing things up weekly, right? Have some higher moments of food, have some lower moments of food, right? So whatever you're consuming now, if you're not working with us, whatever you're consuming now, add a couple extra ounces to that every, other day or something of that nature, right? Just to signal to your body that it doesn't have to consistently create these adaptations. It signals that more food is coming and you can start to make progress again, because your body's probably hanging on for dear life right now, and it has a choice. And that choice is, do we keep so-and-so up and running, or do we, reserve everything that we possibly can? And right now it's probably trying to reserve everything that it possibly can. And that leads me into the last point is worst case scenario, which very rarely happens, but worst case scenario, let's say you've been consistent, you've actually been doing this for the 12 weeks, you've been doing all that stuff, and maybe you have tried the cyclical approach and changing things up, and it hasn't worked out, right? And I do want to say that doing a cyclical approach, that doesn't mean, oh, well, I had some cheat days, or I had that, no, it has to be in a structured way, okay? But let's just say you've done that and nothing's working. Well, I hate to break it to you, and everybody hates this type of phase, but it's time to start a reverse diet, okay? And what that means in plain terms is you however, for us, what we do, when we do the reverse process and someone's working with us, we're always changing things up, but let's just talk our highest level program. When they're doing that, we reverse them until they literally can't, right? We're constantly monitoring the data. We're making sure that, we're watching it. Are you actually preserving your inches or losing some inches as we increase food? And if that's the case, we keep increasing until we can't, right? That's the way that we do it. And so the way that you can do it, I always say if you're not working with us, because if you're working with us, I don't want you to get confused, and we take care of this stuff for you so that you don't ever have to worry about it, okay? But there are a lot of people who don't work with us, and that's who I'm trying to help at this very moment. And so if you're not, what you can do is whatever you've been consuming, add an ounce of protein to it, right? And then in a couple of weeks, add, half an ounce of protein to it, or another ounce. And then after about 1 or 2 weeks, you can add some more fat. And then you could just kind of slowly increase that and do it until you start gaining inches. Don't worry about the scale. Okay, you're gonna have more food volume. That stuff's gonna happen. Don't worry about the scale. Again, this is a structured process, and we need to signal to our body that more food is coming, right? And by doing that, it's gonna start to rev up your metabolism again. It's gonna start to, work hard for you again, and you're gonna get to the place that you actually wanna go. So think of it like a speed bump, right? You gotta slow down so that you can then speed up again. That's what you're doing. So you're gonna signal to your body that more food is coming in a slow and controlled process, and then you're gonna monitor your inches. So if you're not taking your inches, take your inches now. If for some reason you don't know how to do that, you can message me and I will send you our guide on how we do our measurements. But you want to make sure that you're taking those measurements. And as long as you are maintaining them or losing them, then keep increasing your food, okay? Now, the moment that you increase and the inches go up, that doesn't mean panic, okay? That means leave it for another week. Don't adjust anything. If it still goes up or doesn't go back down, then the first thing that you can do is, okay, I'm gonna leave it there for a couple of weeks. I recommend, anywhere between 3 and 4 weeks, some even longer, depending on how long you've been dieting. Again, I don't know who this is talking to per se, like you as the individual. So you could have been dieting for 3 years. Well, 4 weeks of maintaining your weight is probably gonna do nothing. You probably need a little bit longer, right? But if you've been 12 weeks at this or longer, then you can probably get away with 4 weeks or something like that. But you're going to maintain that for a little bit, as long as you're, wherever that sweet spot is to where your inches are no longer going up, you're just maintaining that. And then once you've been there for about 4 weeks, depending on how long you've been dieting, then you can go back into another weight loss phase, okay? But that's all I got for this video. I hope that was helpful for you. If you like this type of content in this longer form, as you can see, I don't edit these things. I really just come from the heart. There will be times where I have some more notes and things like that just to keep me on track. But you're gonna get the unfiltered, exactly as if someone asked me this question is how I would answer it. And I hope that it's been beneficial for you. And if it has been, then I really would appreciate a comment or a share, because that would be awesome. And it would influence me to keep making these, 15-minute long videos if they are of value to you. So, there's any questions on that, feel free to let me know. I'm more than happy to answer them, but those are the ways that you can overcome fat loss plateaus. And yeah, I'll see you next time.